Padhi Sarvatra Gunaya Nidhiyate, which means good qualities put their footprints everywhere. And that is so very true for the 30 years of excellence in education by the rich Birla heritage and the inception of our Birla Global University. And on that note, I welcome all of you to Ask Your Professor, and this is Swagat Kishore Mishra from the area of economics. We believe in the vision of our university, developing ethical leaders with global and entrepreneurial mindset, striving for sustainability and inclusive growth.
Hello everybody, welcome to BGU Talks, #AskYourProfessor. Today we have with us Professor Swagat Kishore Mishra. Welcome sir.
Thank you.
So let's begin our discussion with some of the pertinent questions that we have for you.
Sure.
As a global participant of the pandemic, we have seen that no business, whether big or small, have been affected by it. So what are your views on the economic outlook of the world?
Thank you for your question, Devant. In fact, the global gross domestic product has contracted by 5.2%, which was reported by Global Economic Outlook, published by the World Bank. And one of the primary reasons is that the pandemic has, in fact, devastated sectors, irrespective of their size and their capacity. All the countries have imposed heavy restrictions, especially during the first wave, which hit in early 2020. Speaking of India, our GDP did contract from being a $2.8 trillion economy in 2019 to becoming a $2.6 trillion economy in 2020. And then talking about Odisha, the state gross domestic product, which kept a steady economic growth rate of 7.1% to begin from 2011 until 2019. It did face a contraction of about minus 4.4% after the global pandemic hit us. But then there is one interesting thing to be spoken about, which is the per capita income of a state like Odisha, which was roughly 48,000 bucks in 2011, and that had tremendously increased by 111% to become 104,000 until 2019. But then, because of COVID-19, we could see that the state imposed lockdown and shutdown scenarios. If I compare both the first and second waves, then we can see sectoral wise impact. Though the Odisha economy is still in the transcendent zone. However, if we speak about specific sectors and the core sectors, we could see that the agriculture made a dip of close to 6%. The livestock was the worst hit, which made a dip of about 32%, and the shrinkage in industrial economic growth was about 8%.
So one could comment that Odisha was consistent from 2011 to 2018.
Yes, unfortunately, Odisha being a coastal state is also devastated by natural calamities, particularly cyclones, and post-COVID-19 in 2020, we had Cyclone Amphan, which led to some dry spell, especially during Kharif season. However, the agricultural scenario in Odisha is still keeping up to its potential.
Thank you for your response, sir. According to a recent data released by International Monetary Fund, it is seen that emerging markets and developing economies have a way better performance than that of advanced economies. So, what factors do you think might be responsible for this?
Well, in fact, Revant, this is a typical case of bigger players wanting to take higher risks and expecting better results or returns, and therefore the output. Now, when we compare the advanced economies with the emerging players, the global pandemic does not differentiate in a similar manner, and that is clearly projected in World Economic Outlook and this particular graph as published by International Monetary Fund. And we can clearly see that post-COVID, the growth trajectory appears to be most promising, most contributing for the emerging economies, which can scale up to an economic growth rate of 5% as compared to 3.1% for the advanced ones. and that together contributes to an annual CAGR rate of 4.2% for the next year. But if we look at the onset of pandemic when it hit in 2020, there you could see that the greatest damage did occur for the advanced economies because then they had much more to lose, which is clearly reflected in a dip of minus 4.9% as compared to minus 2.4% with the emerging and developing economies. And the other fact is that this would be also reflecting that there are lesser advanced economies in number as compared to the bracketed emerging and developing countries.
Thank you for those interesting facts, sir. This takes me to the next question, which is almost 58% of India's livelihood comes from agriculture. So, will we be able to see a mini green revolution with the rise of organic produce and homegrown businesses?
I will not be over-exaggerating by stating that if there is a single sector which has to a greater extent defeated and beaten black and blue to the phenomena called COVID-19 is in fact agriculture. No doubt that with the COVID-19, farmers were still asked to continue plowing the fields and their ongoing farming activities, and which has helped us to secure our food security measures. And this is also true that during the rise of pandemic and the shutdown of businesses and clusters of industries and firms, homegrown businesses have taken a surge, and that was required. And in fact, the onset of e-commerce has helped, together with Digital India Momentum, to facilitate the trade volume and the work from home culture. And in context of agriculture, well, it won't just be a mini green revolution, but it would be a greener revolution in the sense that we are now going back to the organic needs of cultivation, to the organic pattern of producing output, and the consumer demand for such products has really grown in the market.
Apart from agriculture and of course the healthcare industry, what other sectors have been able to shield themselves from the negative impacts of COVID-19?
In fact, COVID-19 has proven to be a blessing in disguise for many companies who could increase their revenue or their turnover after the pandemic. We would be talking about the e-commerce platforms that has made noticeable gains in the history of new consumers and beneficiaries. There are insurance sectors and agencies who have tailor-made new policies that are suitable to fit into the COVID requirement. We could see the healthcare and the banking industry coming together for many state-level programs and maintaining these COVID centers, and the financial intermediaries also taking the digital mode to enable electronic transfers and digital payments being done by individuals at large. Here I will talk about one particular company which is an MNC, it's Revolut, and it could increase its revenue by 84%, and the basic work they do is they facilitate credit card lending activities for foreign exchange currencies. And there would be umpteen number of examples, in fact, apart from core agriculture and healthcare sector and health devices, which have not given into or succumbed to the COVID adverse impact on their trade and commerce.
Speaking of education, on 29 July 2021, Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi and Education Minister Shri Dharmendra Pradhan addressed the nation on the completion of 1 year anniversary of the National Education Policy 2021. So, what are your expectations from it?
Yes, sir. National Education Policy 2021 marks its first anniversary after it replaces the 34-year-old National Policy on Education 1986. The NEP 2021 has two broad programs, which are National Digital Education Architecture and National Education Technology Forum. Apart from that, there is going to be an exclusive website on artificial intelligence. personally, to me, what makes me most happy is the fact that the National Education Policy 2021 are going to introduce something called Vidya Pravesh, that is a 3-month play school program for grade 1 students, where my kid is also going to. And for the other standards, particularly 3rd, 5th, and 8th, there is something called SAFAL, which is structured assessment for analyzing the learning levels. Before meeting you, Raymond, I could have always spoken something which would be true for me as well as for you and for our great grandparents, and that would be that both them and us have passed through the same kind of assessments. So we are not going to discuss the skill gaps because we are already drowning into the skill canyons. And fortunately now with the new education policy, there is this ray of hope that the assessment pattern would be much more appreciated, which was also highlighted back in World Economic Forum 2020.
Thank you for your reply, sir. Now we have an interesting question from one of our students, which reads, how has YKK, which manufactures zippers, emerged as a monopoly in the market?
Well, YKK would be a Japanese company since the early 30s, named after its founder, and the full form in Japanese would be actually Yogido Ogyo Kawasaki Kashai. Yes, they have been a monopoly in existence primarily because of the high upfront capital cost that they are able to float. They do have the new competition coming from its Chinese counterpart, that is SBS. They make the zippers which are suitable especially for the jean clothing wear, bags and other accessories and apparels. Now the existence of monopoly can be called a natural monopoly if they are able to manage the economies of scale and continue to produce more and more at lesser and lesser average cost per unit of output. And I think that is also applicable for this organization, and we can say that YKK is not just a monopoly but a natural monopoly in its existence.
Thanks, Raymond. Good day, sir. I'm Abhishek Prakash, and I'll be taking forward the interview. So, sir, what energy security measures is required by companies so that they can create a safe environmental impact?
Welcome, Abhishek. In fact, the COVID-19 pandemic has also miraculously allowed nature to go for a self-healing process, and now it is a greater onus onto the corporate and the industrial belts to realize the growing importance of corporate environmental responsibility, which would also enhance the energy security needs of an economy. They should encourage transforming from making a strategic shift of using fossil fuels to renewable sources or renewable deployment on their corporate office and premises. That also brings on board the fact that Ola, which is going to manufacture the two-wheelers, has come up with its largest industrial base in Tamil Nadu, and it has devoted acres and acres of land for deforestation and afforestation reasons. That is also showcasing that even corporates are getting seriously serious with preserving the environment for overall development, for overall social empowerment.
Sure, sir. I mean, corporate social responsibility should be a real responsibility followed by these big companies. Moving on to the next question. What is the future of electric vehicles in India?
In fact, the existing automobile makers have also made a transition to explore the possibilities of manufacturing electric vehicles. And in this regard, the biggest player to emerge, to galvanize India's momentum on the electric vehicles availability would be Ola's biggest electric vehicle manufacturing unit coming up in Tamil Nadu, spread over 500 acres with an investment of 2,500 crores. Apart from the EVs, I believe that even the public transit system requires to use lesser of fossil fuels, and therefore that would again come together in providing India the giant leap of being not only the manufacturer of EVs in India but also the exporter. But there are two problems associated with the EVs and these two problems can be overcome in near future as well. The one is the dilemma of getting the charging facilities, the supercharging stations, and the other would be, of course, making the green to green corridor charging facilities. And that again requires swapping of batteries technology and particularly the companies like Eskimo Solutions who are working on it. And the pricing and the subsidies associated with EVs from an economic modeling point of view will be quite essential to decide the future roadmap for EVs in India.
Agreed, sir. Sir, I have a candid question for you. Which is your favorite electric car?
My favorite electric car is the one you are showing in the background. It's the Tesla Model X.
Wow, sir. Must say this is a really nice car. And I think if we were to ask our comment section, which is your favorite electric car? Just write that down in the comments.
But then these electric vehicles, they are green, but are they actually clean? Because the essential element required to manufacture the lithium-ion batteries is cobalt, and that is mostly found in these arid regions, particularly the Dominican Republic of Congo, and that has also led to huge manifestation of child labor.
So, sir, moving on. What is the ideal business environment for a unicorn?
Well, before I take up this question, I will share a fascinating story of one such company that started with a mere 5 lakh of investment and the brainstorming of the idea that occurred in a small room in Delhi. Now, he was an IIT Kanpur graduate and an oil engineer now based in Noida. We all know about the international business that water purifiers are brought into. And this is an ever-growing sector now because water is quintessential for our survival needs. So we have some international players like the Aerosmith from US, we have Honeywell International from Switzerland, we got LG Electronics from South Korea. But in India, the two big players which almost operate like a duopoly would be Eureka Homes and Kent R, which was founded by Mr. Mahesh Gupta. And today the revenue model of Kent RO is more than 1,000 crores. So if you do the mapping of what was happening in 1999, a simple investment of 5 lakh rupees, and what it has been making a turnover of more than 1,000 crores, I would say that a business environment requires enveloping so many other facets of challenges of sectoral needs of the business entity, be it the economic business environment, be it the legal business environment, be it the social political legal business environment. So it needs a synthesis of all these factors which the business can actually take to its advantage and then move on.
So thanks a ton, Avi. So moving forward with the next question. So what are your views on the taxation of OTT platforms?
In fact, the OTT industry needs regulation, and it is also visible with its pattern of taxes and regime. They need to pay the license fee, they need to pay the spectrum usage fee, and also the additional gross revenue which also enters into the part of taxes. The taxation regime on OTT platforms comprises of a license fee. Sometimes there is additional gross revenue that also enters into the taxation process, and most importantly, the spectrum usage. And now the debate is whether the OTT needs regulation or can it still be deregulated.
Okay, sir. Do you think that the rise of OTT industry has affected the contemporary cinema?
Thank you, Shwetlina, because I'm happy to see this particular question. It belongs to my most favorite area, that is cinemanomics. Yes, contemporary cinema did undergo tremendous pressure and they were afraid of complete closure of businesses because the exhibitors were running away, and so were the distributors because we were under lockdown and shutdown restrictions. Thankfully, the emergence of OTT platforms have provided a new lease of life, and that's how we can see that it has be positively correlated. So I believe that the content and quality of contemporary cinema would be benefited out of the sprawling and expanding of OTT industry.
Alright, sir. But do you think once the country gets fully vaccinated, will it affect the box office collection in India?
Keeping fingers crossed, yes, certainly our economy will get 100% vaccination for its entire population and citizens. In fact, the United Nations has hailed a very tiny nation like Bhutan for achieving this marvelous 85% of vaccination done for its citizens. And you know what? They were provided with the AstraZeneca jabs that was supplied by India to Bhutan. Now, of course, when the population is fully vaccinated, the number of doses required and everything, it will not only significantly boost the box office collections as such, but also all those associated and interrelated business activities, and also every sector are going to revisit the growth trajectory, and that would be truly encouraging, and that would be truly aspiring to achieve sooner.
Okay, thank you, sir. So we will quickly move on to the rapid fire round.
So hello, this is Shwatina Mishra, and let's start up with the rapid fire round. Sir, are you ready?
Of course,
So how many questions do you expect, sir?
not many.
Okay, let's start with what is your favorite movie?
My favorite movie would be Hum, directed by late Shri Mukul S. Anand, starring Shri Amitabh Bachchan, Rajinikanth and Govinda.
If you wouldn't have been a professor, what you would have been?
I would have still loved to be a student.
Okay. How would you describe life in terms of economics?
Economics helps in making life a bit more simpler, and understanding happiness can be shared on non-monetary terms as well.
Okay. Which one song has been your favorite since childhood?
Okay, that puts me in a dilemma because the song is Juma Chuma De De, written by late Anand Bakshi Saab and music penned by Lakshmikant Pyarelal ji, again from the movie Hum.
Okay. Do you think sense of humor is an essential part of your skill set?
Sense of humor is a quintessential part of anyone's skill set. Yeah.
So one thing that annoys you the most?
I at times annoy myself the most.
Okay. Which state do you like the most?
My state of mind.
Who is your favorite actor?
Shri Amitabh Bachchan.
Describe yourself in 3 words.
Now and from here on.
What is there in your bucket list?
To have a Harley Davidson Sportster, yes, and to have one Ford Bronco 2-door Outer Banks, to avail a doctorate degree at the earliest, to make valuable contribution in field of research and renewables, and making sustainable human development translate into simple human development.
Too many wishes. Okay. On the scale of 1 to 10, how cool are you?
1.
Okay. Fiction or non-fiction? What would you prefer?
Fictional.
Okay. What is your top 3 achievements, sir?
My first achievement has been I've been born into a lovely family where care and love is engulfed all around. My second achievement is again God bestowed that enabled me to pursue education in its true regard. And my latest achievement is that I'm a father of a lovely kid who makes me believe that my achievements are always going to manifold.
Towards whom you're inclined the most, sir? Edison, Nikola Tesla, Einstein or Galileo?
I'll go with Galileo.
Why, sir?
I think others won't accompany me.
Okay, last question. What is the most expensive thing that you own, sir?
No matter how many things I own, they cannot replace my mom because she is everything that I can ever have in any life.
It was a very beautiful answer, sir, and also a beautiful session, sir. So thank you so much, sir, for joining us for today's session.
All my pleasure, guys, and thank you Shatlina, thank you Revant, and thanks Avi, and thanks Dinesh for being all the support. In Sanskrit we say Yat Bhavo Tat Bhavati, which means you become what you believe. So see you guys very soon at a lovely place blessed by nature, which is Birla Global University.